So, the awareness principle. Why can't you see what's going on? Particularly if it's happening right under your nose. Awareness is really about social intelligence. How do I interact with others? Do I see how I interact with others? How do I influence others? And how do I allow others to influence me? You have to choose to be conscious. In fact, what's really important about awareness is the fact that if you can't see it, you can't manage it. Let me give you an example. When I was an 8-year-old boy, my father in the summer used to take me to an outdoor bowl. It was called the Redlands Bowl. It's a wonderful outdoor kind of amphitheater. It had a huge proscenium. And we would go there to see musical events, singers, plays, all kinds of other community activities. One night as we were waiting for the program to begin, he pointed to the little saying that was above the proscenium, etched in the concrete, and he says, "What do you think that means?" It said, "Without vision, a people perish." I thought for a minute, and of course as an 8-year-old I responded, well, I guess that means that if you're blind and you can't see, then you can't find your food, so you die. He laughed a little bit and said, no, probably for an 8-year-old that's a pretty good answer. But what it really means is this. If you can't see where you are and see what you're doing and understand where you want to go, then the likelihood of you getting there is pretty slim. That's what it kind of means. So notice how that kind of applies to conversation. In conversation, to be aware, to see what's going on, you have to be both a participant in and an observer of the conversation. So when I participate, that means we're talking about certain content, and I'm participating in that. But being aware of what's going on is noticing what's happening in that conversation. If I can do that, then I can manage it. Do you remember the movie The Amazing Spider-Man? Do you remember how he made a web and he shot cords of that web up certain tunnels in the sewer? And then he laid on the cords playing video games. Why did he do that? He was hoping that if somebody struck the cord, then he'd feel it and he'd know they were coming. Likewise, there's kind of a web of awareness. There are cords, and when people strike those cords, it should tell us that something's going on. Now, there's many of them. I'm going to just mention 2 today, and they deal with emotion. So when I'm talking about emotion, I'm talking about negative or hot emotion. So here we go. When I become emotional, that emotion says more about me than the other person. In other words, when I become angry or upset, what's really going on is there's something happening in my head that's basically causing me to emote. If I can recognize my own emotional responses, then I can manage them. Chord 2. Other people, as you talk with them in conversation, will begin to become emotional. They'll get angry, or they'll get hot, or they'll get defensive, and you'll be able to see it. What that tells you is that there's something going on in their head. And you want to be able to discover what that is, to diffuse the emotion, and then be able to continue to hold the conversation. So you'll remember in the book I talked about, right, conversations either go above or below the line. When people are hot or negative, or when you are hot or negative, that conversation is going below the line. And you'll remember that the easiest way to lift the conversation is to ask questions. Now, there's 2 things that I want you to know. Whether you're emotional or the other person you're talking to is emotional. 1, there's a thought in front of or that precedes every emotion that a person demonstrates. And 2, whether it be you or another person, most of the time they don't know what that thought is. So the challenge for you is to be able to discover what that thinking is. And you do that by asking questions. So here's what I'd like you to do. This next week, I'd like you to be an observer of yourself, an objective observer. Notice when you start to become emotional, hot or negative. And when you can notice it, you can say to yourself, well, wow, what's that all about? You can start to explore and discover what it's about. Then the second week, I want you to start to notice when other people that you converse with start to become emotional, hot or negative. When that happens, start asking them questions that will lift the conversation above the line. The more you do it, the more you'll be successful, because you'll start to notice the subtle nuances that people display that tell you that the conversation's going awry, it's going below the line, and what you want to do is lift that conversation above the line. Good luck. Hope that helps. Thanks for listening.